of music.
Let's talk to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. When I first heard about this, I was sceptical that he'd picked this music himself. Watching that, I suspect he probably has.
I think he has, and I understand he will be sharing anecdotes with meeting some of these artists, of course, from across the Commonwealth, from across the decades, when this new show launches on Apple Music on Monday to mark Commonwealth Day. This was recorded in his office, and...
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, happy Friday to you. It's 6 o'clock, I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight, the UK's busiest airport, Heathrow, ground to an absolute standstill today. It affected tens of thousands of people after an electrical fire. But according to their CEO, their crisis management worked the way it should. I'd hate to see it when it didn't then. Let's look at that. And pressure is mounting on the government regarding their changes to disability benefits. And many people now are starting digging around going, well, hold on a second, let's look at the life that these MPs live. And they're pointing to things like the very, very cheap, some would say taxpayers subsidised meals that they get to enjoy when they're at work. Let's look at that. And do you think we've got a, quote, toxic bro culture online, fuelled apparently by the likes of Trump? Everyone seems obsessed with a show called Adolescence. Let's look into that as well. And let me ask you this. Is holding up a banner that says, and I quote, keep woke foreign ideologies out, defend Europe, is that banner racist and or discriminatory? According to Rangers Football Club and UEFA, it is, and there will be, quote, consequences for those responsible for holding it up. Right. Alongside me for the show tonight, I've got my panel, Jake Berry, the former MP and chairman of the Tory party, and Judita De Silva, the broadcaster and commentator. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wemsler with your headlines from the GB Newsroom. British Airways has been given clearance for 8 long-haul flights to depart the airport today from 7 p.m, the airline said in a statement. Earlier, the airline announced it is able to restart flights and that it hopes to run a full service tomorrow. It's after a fire at a nearby electrical substation forced Europe's busiest airport into shutdown. More than 1,300 flights have been cancelled or diverted, affecting over 200,000 passengers and leaving planes and crews in the wrong location. Counter-terrorism police are now leading an investigation into the blaze, though they say there's no indication of foul play. The airport says disruption could still last for days and passengers shouldn't travel to Heathrow until further notice. Speaking earlier, the Heathrow Airport CEO apologised for the shutdown.
What I'd like to do is to apologise to the many people who have had their travel affected during the day-to-day. We are very sorry about all the inconvenience. I hope people appreciate that we do not close down the airport unless we have severe safety concerns. That's why we do it, and that's what has happened today. We've been working tirelessly to get the operation back into running, and that's what's now happening.
Meanwhile, Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander said she had spoken to Heathrow's chief executive about any lessons that might be learned for the future following the fire. In other news, President Donald Trump has dismissed reports that Elon Musk was to be briefed about US plans for any war that might break out with China. The tech billionaire visited the Pentagon today for meetings that have sparked debate after multiple US media outlets suggested he would be given an overview of China war plans. Mr. Musk called for the prosecution of officials he said had leaked maliciously false information to the New York Times, which first reported the story. Speaking from the Oval Office, the president denied reports, saying China will not even be mentioned or discussed. Now, a man who took a bomb into a Leeds hospital intending to kill as many nurses as possible has been jailed for life. Mohammed Farouk has been jailed at Sheffield Crown Court for a minimum term of 37 years. Farouk, who was a trainee nurse, was last year found guilty of attempting to launch an IS-inspired suicide attack using a homemade bomb on the hospital where he worked in 2023. And Tommy Robinson has lost a High Court bid to challenge his segregation in prison over fears he'd be killed by another inmate. He was moved to a closed wing at Wood Hill after intelligence suggested a prisoner serving life was planning to attack him. His lawyers argued his isolation breaches human rights and is harming his mental health. But the court heard he enjoys various privileges behind bars and has no arguable claim. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you until 7 o'clock tonight. I do just want to comment there on that story you've just been hearing about the guy sent to prison for plotting that attack on the hospital. The person that I would suggest that people need to focus here is the patient. One of the patients, it's a remarkable story, actually intervened, had a conversation with that guy that fancied himself as a bit of some kind of bomb hero. Anyway, if you ask me, that patient, he deserves some kind of medal, some kind of bravery award, because he, in my mind anyway, absolutely saved the lives of so many people. So thank you very much for that. Anyway, look, I'm with you till 7. Alongside me, I've got Jake Berry, the former MP and chairman of the Conservative Party, and alongside him, Judita De Silva, the broadcaster and commentator. Hello to both of you and happy Friday. You're very welcome.
Happy Friday.
Every single one of you at home as well, you are very welcome indeed. Thank you for spending your early Friday night with me, enjoying the conversation all the usual ways. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay. Or, of course, you can tweet or you can X me. Now, are you sitting there watching me when actually you're supposed to be sat on the beach with your feet up today? Devastation for so many people that attempted to travel as the busiest airport, Heathrow, closed all day long because of a fire, an electrical substation. Let's cross live to our reporter, Steve Bennett. He is outside Heathrow. Good evening to you. Bring us up to speed with all the latest for anyone that hasn't followed this today.
Michelle, good evening everyone. Yes, there have been chaotic scenes here in West London. That fire at a substation in Hayes, just a few miles away from the airport, has caused absolute carnage and has meant that the airport has been closed all day long, and it's meant that the usual 250,000 passengers that pass through this airport on a daily basis, that has not happened today. And just in the last few hours, we've been hearing that finally flights will be taking off around 7 o'clock tonight. British Airways have permission for 8 long-haul flights around about 7 o'clock to take off from the airport behind me. We also had earlier on, we were informed when power was restored to Terminal 4, which is behind me as well. So slowly things have been getting back to normal here at Heathrow, but it has, of course, caused massive disruption for so many passengers. We've been hearing about people who have been stuck, in all kinds of destinations where they shouldn't be, because 120 planes were on their way to London Heathrow when all of a sudden it was closed, and those 120 planes approximately, they had to either divert or head back to their point of origin, which has meant that not only passengers passengers, but planes and crew, they're scattered all over the globe, which means there'll now be a process of getting those people to where they need to be. So even if the airport opens tomorrow, like the CEO is saying it will be, he's saying it's going to be business as usual tomorrow. He's encouraging people to come to the airport for their flights as usual, as scheduled. Even if that does happen, it's still going to be days to get through this backlog because nobody is where they're meant to be. And I've seen air stewardesses, air stewards who have gone back to their hotel for the day because their flights have been grounded. They're going nowhere. And it has been incredible being in West London today because the skies are completely quiet. There's nothing flying overhead. And some of the locals have said they haven't seen it like this for years. And actually for them, they say it's been quite refreshing that there's been no planes in the sky. But of course, that's not the case for passengers. If you've missed your flight, you haven't been able to get on your flight, it's been cancelled, delayed, and you've missed family arrangements, important engagements which some passengers have. So we haven't seen this kind of disruption since COVID, and then before that in 2010 when the Icelandic volcano spewed out all that ash, if you remember, costing the aviation industry approximately £130 million a day while that was going on. I'm sure the costs will be sky high for this as well, and the passengers have been told that if they do have to put themselves in hotels, if they do have to feed themselves while this all rectifies itself, hold on to your seats and your airline will be in a position to reimburse you when things settle down. So hopefully by tonight the airport will be open again and full service will resume tomorrow.
Thank you very much for that update. As for those reimbursements, I can hear many viewers at home, I'll be shouting, yeah, good luck with that. I believe that when I see it. But anyway, thank you very much for that. Look, let's listen to what the Heathrow CEO had to say about all of this, literally just about half an hour ago.
As I said, our procedures have worked the way they should. This takes time, and of course the Prime Minister should ask his questions and we'll be happy to answer them. What I'm saying to the customers, of course, is that we are sorry for the incident. It was caused by what is outside factors. I think the statements are made without much detail of what's actually happening and the understanding of the severity of this incident.
Also then, let's listen to the Transport Secretary, shall we? Heidi Alexander.
The reason why the Counter-Terrorism Command of the Metropolitan Police are working with the London Fire Brigade on identifying the causes of this incident at the substation is because it took place next to a critical piece of national infrastructure. The Counter-Terrorism Command have specific capabilities and capacities that mean that they are used to conducting investigations at pace, and it's really important that we identify the cause of this quickly. There are no suggestions at the moment of foul play, but you will appreciate the investigation keeps an open mind, and our priority is identifying the cause as soon as possible.
Well, there you go. What do you make to all of this at home? And have you actually been affected? Was you affected by any of this? If you were, get in touch and tell me your story. Jake Berry, I used to be a business consultant, right? And I remember at length we used to have meetings about DR, we used to call it disaster recovery, business continuity. And it was all about making sure there was never a single point of failure where one single solitary thing could literally bring down everything. I find the fact that we've had this humongous, everyone would agree, actually. It's one of the most critical airports in this country. I think it's the fourth biggest in the world, brought to its knees because of one single incident. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, it's an embarrassment, isn't it, frankly, that Britain's entire aviation industry, or certainly the biggest component of it, can be brought to a grinding halt by one substation going down. Now, maybe we don't know the cause. I mean, obviously the police are investigating. It could be as simple as an electrical fault,
whatever the cause,
or it could be something more sinister. But what I want to know is where you have these critical pieces of national infrastructure, where is the resilience built into them? There should be a backup power supply that turns on straight away as soon as this power is going to drop out. Or, more reasonably, Heathrow itself should not be reliant upon one substation. So what I hope the government will now do, as well as investigating the cause of this, will look at all the other pieces of infrastructure in the UK that are vulnerable to this type of failure and try and set about solving that problem, because it's an embarrassment, it shouldn't happen, it's not acceptable.
But I'm astonished that work wasn't already done? Why isn't there already those national resilience plans in place?
Well, there are. I mean, I used to look at them when I was in government around my department, which was around local government, so there are. I see that Richard Tice has made an interesting comment earlier today saying that he wants to know whether it's this substation backup having to go net zero, which is the reason that it didn't kick in or not. I simply don't know that if that is the case. Richard tends to be pretty well briefed on these things. If that is, I mean, that is beyond absurd. Now, no government can ever anticipate things that will happen. Remember a few years ago, Gatwick Airport closed down because someone flew a drone over it? It's when cheap drones became widely available. No one really thought that was going to happen until it did. You can't know what's going to happen. But as you say, in business, Michelle, you plan. So we don't know what might shut us down, but we need to be ready when it happens.
That's the entire point.
And they clearly weren't, were they?
That is the entire point of you planning business continuity. It doesn't matter what it is. You sit there and you go, right, where's all my single points of failure? Whatever causes that failure, how do we stop it having a complete catastrophic impact? I mean, to me, that's just basic. It is literally basic business 101.
I think that it's... First of all, I'd rather wait until there's a comprehensive report on all the borders of what happened. But I have just a strange feeling that what the protocols they have in place for disaster management, he said, worked. But this happened on such a scale that they were overly cautious. That's why they shut down everything, because normally with a situation like this, parts of the airports would shut down, other parts would carry on. But they've probably panicked and shut down everything because this is unprecedented. So they don't have a situation where you're doing tests regularly to know that when something like this happens, this is our protocol and our course of action, which is a big problem on their part.
One of my viewers, Linda, you've made a really interesting point. You've said, Michelle, we keep having all these conversations about what the UK reckons it's going to do when it comes to defending Ukraine and such like. You're saying we're in a situation where, never mind talking about ruling skies over Ukraine or wherever, we can't even get passenger planes into the air due to a fire. Linda's point there, I think, is that we perhaps have delusions of grandeur in terms of what we can and can't do internationally when we can't even fix our own house domestically.
Yeah, and look, it's a really good point. I said I thought it was a national embarrassment that one fire can shut down effectively air travel for most people in the United Kingdom. There needs to be a rapid review of resilience. In all fairness to the last government, they took steps like they removed Huawei, a Chinese technology company that is highly influenced by the Chinese government, from all our nuclear infrastructure.
No,
they removed it from CCTV in police stations. No, we did do that. It was
you did it under pressure. So what happened was...
But we still did it. But
don't make out, this is where I get a bit... Don't make out that the Tories were sitting there going, oh, look, we've identified this thing, let's take it off. Correct me if I'm wrong, you'll know more about it than me. But wasn't it a situation, actually, where Huawei was potentially going to be quite involved in rolling out things like the 5G network, and then what happened was that the US had to get involved and actually start putting pressure on, saying if you get more, and I'm paraphrasing, but if you get closer into bed with these guys, we are going to potentially have to do things like restrict intelligence sharing. Is my memory correct?
I mean, certainly the US were involved. I was actually talking about the government before that systematically buying out Chinese influence from the nuclear program, which the government did well in advance of Huawei. Look, you know, it's quite right that we don't give foreign powers control of infrastructure. This is a really good example of what can happen if that went wrong. There's no inference that Chinese government or Huawei were involved. But that's the reason that governments should do things like buy foreign powers out of contracts if they're going to control energy.
Sally, another viewer, you've made a really good point, and I must confess I don't know the answer. You've said, never mind the flights, what about all of these homes that have been left without electricity? Nobody's mentioning them and those people, and please can you tell us, do they have the electricity back? Well, I don't know the answer, Sally, but I think you raise a very good point, so I'm going to try and find the answer to that and update you as soon as I can within the programme. But look, coming up after the break, I want to talk to you about welfare cuts in government. I want to talk to you about a banner that was held up in a football stadium that was apparently racist and discriminatory. I want to see if you agree with that. So we've got lots to discuss. I'll see you in 2.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Throughout my life, music has meant a great deal to me. It has that remarkable ability to bring happy memories, comfort us in times of sadness, and to take us to distant places. But perhaps, above all, it can lift our spirits to such a degree, and all the more so when it brings us together in celebration. In other words, it brings us joy. So this is what I particularly wanted to share with you. Songs which have brought me joy. This seemed such an interesting and innovative way to celebrate this year's Commonwealth Day. Thank you for listening. I wish you all every possible blessing.
Well, there you go.
Do you know, I love him.
Yeah, I do too, and I love that song as well.
Just the way he delivers that and wish you every possible blessing. What a man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just adore him. I adore him.
He's very like his late mother there, actually. I wish you
Yeah.
every possible blessing. Very like her.
Very
Well, as you
nice.
saw, the show is called The King's Music Room, where he's going to share his top tracks and opens up about his love of music.
Let's talk to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. When I first heard about this, I was sceptical that he'd picked this music himself. Watching that, I suspect he probably has.
I think he has, and I understand he will be sharing anecdotes with meeting some of these artists, of course, from across the Commonwealth, from across the decades, when this news show launches on Apple Music on Monday to mark Commonwealth Day. This was recorded in his office, and...
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. I'm keeping you company until 7 o'clock tonight on this Friday evening. How are you all? I do hope you're all well. Alongside me, I've got Jake Berry and I've got Judita De Silva. Now, we've spoken at length, haven't we, about the situation when it comes to tweaking the benefits bill in this country. And it has, of course, divided opinion, including among many of you at home, especially when it comes to some of the tweaks on some of the disability benefits. Lots of you, I know we've spoken about this often, many of you have been in touch saying that you're absolutely devastated, anxious, furious about the cuts that have been made. Well, now many celebrities are putting their name to some of this criticism as well. You've got your likes of Stephen Fry, Brian Cox and so on. Apparently what they're saying is that these tweaks will have a lasting impact on the lives of so many people that are already finding it very difficult to afford life's essentials. Then what people have started doing is digging around in the weeds. We like it when this happens. And started pointing out things like the menus that take place at the Houses of Parliament and the costs of the food associated with that. So doing the rounds has been one of the menus, and just the cost of food it is actually quite staggering. You can get fish and chips with mushy peas, tartar sauce for £7.33 is a small example. That same price will get you a leek and wild mushroom bread and butter pudding. Who even eats that? Who at home would eat a leek and wild mushroom bread and butter pudding? Anyway, whatever. The point is, Judita De Silva, that people are saying you guys are sitting in an ivory tower where you are literally getting your food subsidised pretty much. Many people will say it's not a direct subsidy, but it effectively is. So you're getting all of this cheap food handed to you when you're earning nearly £100,000 a year. You're just completely out of touch when it comes to how so many people are living. What do you think?
I think, first of all, that is just the knee-jerk reaction that always happens when people are in fear of their state of living being attacked. So, well, those who have more than me, look at what they have, but then that's the wages and that's the status quo for how politicians function. So put that to the side. What I do say is that what Labour is doing is something that has had to be done for years, which is address the welfare system because it's out of control. So drastic measures have to be taken. My issue is the speed at which they've done it, the timing at which they've done it. They never said they were going to do it in the manifesto. So it feels like to go after the welfare system, it's something you're going to have to take time on and be very diligent with, because inevitably there will be people who fall through the cracks when you go with one-size-fits-all kind of policies, which is what it seems like they're doing now. So again, which is the issue I have so much with the Labour government. The intention is noble, the motivation is good, the execution is poor, which happens time and time again.
Jake?
Well, I mean, there's sort of two stories here. So, as someone who was until quite recently a member of the House of Commons, I can tell you that the reason most of the food is cheap is to support the thousands of people, really hard-working people, from cleaners to doorkeepers to everyone else who work there and can't leave the building during their hours of work. The members' dining room, solely designed for MPs, to have food that cheap is indefensible, and they should do something about it. But looking at these celebrities, I'm not quite sure. So look at that list. They are an ultra-wealthy, ultra-privileged group of individuals who feel they are uniquely able in the United Kingdom to lecture everyone about what it's like to be from a low-income family. Look, I just think this is a sugar rush for them. They're virtue signalling. If they wanted to do something useful, they could pool some of their fortunes, probably going into the hundreds of millions if you look at the name on that list, and make a significant donation to some of the brilliant charities like the Trussell Trust, who's quoted in the article on Sky, which actually really try and change the life chances of low-income families in this country. They think this makes a difference. I can tell you, look, politicians completely ignore this. This is virtue signalling. This is about them getting their name in the paper, trying to associate themselves with a good cause. It makes no difference whatsoever. I don't think we should give them the oxygen of publicity.
For some, yes. For Rosie Jones, no, because she's a disabled comedian, so she's uniquely position to comment on this because she probably lives benefiting from those welfare.
Do you think Stephen Fry worries about benefits?
Not Stephen Fry. You're right for some, but I don't think it's one size fits all.
The highest paid
Rosie Jones, I have time for the others.
On Succession.
Brian Cox dealt with child poverty, so he knows exactly what he's talking about because he's lived it. Because he happens to have lived a life that led him to success, you can't penalise him for having an opinion on something he's lived through.
MPs are elected by. Well, they have about 80,000 electors. Yeah. Good MPs go out knocking on doors every single weekend talking to their constituents. They hold advice surgeries where your poorest and most vulnerable constituents come and see you and say, look, I've got this problem. This idea that MPs have no connection with low-income families in their community, whatever their own personal wealth, whatever their lunch costs in the House of Commons, is for the birds. And I just find it quite offensive that these ultra-wealthy, ultra-privileged individuals, and I don't think for low-income families, they're doing it for themselves because they want to read their name in the paper, feel they can lecture members of Parliament and the government about the lived life experience of low-income families in this country. I just don't think it's true.
But it's not even about low-income families, is it? Because some of this PIP stuff goes to people irrespective of their other benefit receipt, irrespective of their income and earnings. So it's not even, for me, it's not an income thing. What these people are saying, in chorus with many other people, is that if somebody is genuinely, struggling, I don't know, they might have incontinence or whatever, and they literally need additional help and support, irrespective of their income, there is a dignity attached with some of these conditions. And when you then start tweaking that level of disability, irrespective of the person's income, that, for many people, is a moral red line that they're uncomfortable with, irrespective of their earnings or the people's earnings.
The first thing is benefits like incapacity benefits and PIP are not related to your earnings, so actually they're about supporting your conditions. This is not my government, this is the Labour government doing this, but I absolutely support it. I think if we all, suspect, and I think in many cases know that there are people receiving these big benefits that shouldn't be getting it. If they're going to seek and find those people and stop them getting it, I support them. That's not the same thing as taking it away from people who need it, which no one should want to do.
Indeed. And that menu, by the way, I'm getting myself hungry here. Pan-fried salmon with courgette and nice cream sauces, etc. Again, £7.33. Many of you, I bet you'd love a bit of salmon for your tea, and chance to be able to afford that would be a fine thing. And just to be clear, that is the members' dining room I'm talking about. That's not accessed by the likes of the cleaners or whatever it was we're just talking about.
Just
that
for
is,
MPs.
yeah, that is literally essentially subsidised food for people that earn pretty much £100,000 a year just in their primary role. You can be the judge of that as to whether or not that's fair, and why on earth do you think that it hasn't actually been stopped before? Tell me your thoughts after the break. We've got lots to discuss, ladies and gents. I'll update you on that Tommy Robinson court case that we discussed last night. I also want to talk to you about a banner that's been held up at a football match and ask whether or not it's racist and or discriminatory. That and more after the break.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Low pressure remains mostly in charge of Western Europe, bringing heavy showers and thunderstorms, bringing in a further risk of flooding. The odd shower across Madeira and Tenerife, but the bulk of the rain affecting Portugal and Spain, where already they've had most of the rain through the week. Still plenty of showers elsewhere across Europe, and mostly dry across parts of Greece, and remaining dry here with the best of the temperatures, but elsewhere still remaining largely showery, and this is limiting temperatures at around the mid to high teens.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Heathrow Airport remains closed. All flights are cancelled till at least midnight tonight, which means no Elizabeth Line and Heathrow Express trains to the airport, obviously. Surrounding roads are also closed, especially in the Hayes area, as is the M4 Heathrow spur coming off the main carriageway towards the airport. Stay with the roads. The M6 in Greater Manchester's queuing towards junction 25 at Bryn. A lorry's broken down in the inside lane. On the M62 in Cheshire, one lane's blocked westbound, junction 87 west of Warrington, following an accident. In West Sussex, the A24 is shut between Findon and Worthing following a multi-vehicle collision. And that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. We're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter, just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out, enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News. Full T's and C's apply. It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you till 7 o'clock. If you're just joining the programme, my panel, I've got Jake Berry, the former MP and chairman of the Tory party, and Judita Da Silva, the broadcaster and commentator, alongside me. There's not a lot of... how shall I put this nicely? There's not a lot of love when I'm asking you guys, do you think we take our kind of national resilience seriously? Do you think we're prepped to prevent things going badly wrong? Steve says, Michelle, it's simple. We are a laughingstock as a country and it's only getting worse. Oh, Steve, that's not a good outlook, is it? Let me ask you this. Because that view is kind of coming along across quite a lot in the inbox. Is there anyone out there that has a completely different view and thinks that the country is on a high? Now, let me just show you very briefly something that caught my eye before I move on with the programme, because AI, we talk about it often, don't we? It's going to be the future. Well, there's a thing doing the rounds at the moment, which is depicting, using AI, a stereotypical couple from a variety of different towns and cities across the UK. Well, obviously, you'll all know that I'm from Hull. So I was intrigued to see, how does artificial intelligence depict a stereotypical Hull couple? Take a look at this. If you're listening on the radio, it was basically two quite overweight people chomping down on a chicken leg with all manner of fast food outlets in the background. I've got to say, there it is again, look at that. I don't really get offended. I think that is very funny indeed. It made me laugh. I've got to say, it's not accurate. We don't sit there with our filthy T-shirts on, desperately hunting fast food, although I will say that that has made me very hungry, and I wouldn't mind a bit of KFC on the way home, I must confess. But anyway, look, we have got to talk about Adolescence. Do you know what that is? If you don't know what it is, let me just tell you. It is a Netflix programme, kind of a drama, if you would like, over several different parts. It's got everybody talking because it depicts like a young working-class lad, and he has essentially stabbed somebody, a young girl, as it happens. And it's all about what they call, like, the manosphere. They've taken it on this kind of truck, if you would like, of this manosphere, what people get up to online, looking at the role of parents and fathers and all the rest of it. And I think this is really quite interesting because people have really got into this programme, and now there's conversations about politicians playing it perhaps in Parliament, the makers of this drama going into Parliament and talking about, you know, the themes explored, misogyny, all those kind of things. Donald Trump, of course, he gets a lot of the blame for some of this stuff, as does the likes of Andrew Tate, and people are focusing very much on a toxic bro culture. What do you think to this, Jake Berry?
Well, I haven't actually been able to watch this. I've seen a few of the takes of it, and I've seen a bit online about it, and I think as a parent, I'm almost too scared to watch it. I know I should, and I absolutely will do. But I do think we've got a real problem in this country, particularly with white working class boys and their aspirations and their achievement. Gareth Southgate did a lecture only this week, I think it was, talking about how more white working class boys own an iPhone than have a father live with them. There's a huge lack of male role models. But then there's also something around, you know, they're constantly lectured. You know, you have white privilege, which is what they're told, and they're living in a council house in Hull or my home city of Liverpool or somewhere in Lancashire or whatever it may be, and they don't feel privileged. They're told they are privileged, and then someone like Andrew Tate comes on the telly and says, you know, if you behave like me, you can have a fast car and you can have women and all this, and they get seduced by it. There's something going terribly wrong with our culture around young men, driven by the internet. And, you know, as a parent of two young boys, it's something I'm really concerned about.
You see, I watch this, and I've got a little boy as well myself. And it did upset me, really, because everyone knows when you've got your kids, grandkids, whatever, you kind of project onto them. So when you watch something, you sit there and you go, oh, my God, this could be my son or whatever. But when you say there is this problem with white working class boys and all the rest of it, you touched on it a little bit then. They're constantly stereotyped and they're constantly blamed for a variety of different things. White privilege, if I hear that sentence much more frequently, honestly, they are often completely disregarded, these working-class white boys. And even, Juditha, there's been a lot of criticism about Adolescence, because when you look at what Adolescence was, you know, kind of inspired by and all the rest of it, one of the prominent cases that inspired it was a situation in Croydon where this young girl was basically killed, murdered, knifed to death by this guy, like a teenage kind of guy. Southport, where you've got all these little girls that have been, we know the story there, obviously horrendously murdered. But what people are saying is, why have you chosen to depict the killer in Adolescence as a young, white, working-class boy? That wasn't the situation in any of the stories that have apparently inspired this conversation. So, yet again, many people are upset, thinking that this is another example of those white, young, working-class boys having blame dumped onto them for things that it's actually they haven't done.
First of all, I think that that's a misguided interpretation of the series, because I actually interviewed Stephen Graham and the director, producer and the co-stars of Adolescence. And when Jack Thorne and Stephen wrote it, he said that he was writing it from his experience of the kinds of men he knew, his character of Eddie Miller, because it's very... I really want people to watch this, because I do feel like they've kind of lifted the duvet up and shone a light on the boogeyman and brought it out for all parents, because this is what you fear. No matter how much you love them or you protect them, or even if they're in their house with you, the internet is a vortex that you could lose them to, and then they're gone. So this is not a case about race, it's a case about gender, because what you have is a generation of young men who do not know where to find an outlet for emotional expression. And that's why this series is great, because you have two characters, Stephen Graham and Ashley Walters, that depict the same kind of fathering style, but one goes wrong and the other has a chance to change the way he looks after his son, and he approaches emotional conversation in the hope of saving him. Because you have young boys that, because my dad is a grafter, he goes to work, he feels like all he has to do is provide, but he doesn't emotionally connect. I don't have direction when I fancy a girl and she rejects me, or I want to go to a party, I don't feel masculine enough, I don't know how to dress. They go to the internet, and Andrew Tate tells them a bunch of toxic stuff, and they think, well, I want to be as rich as Andrew Tate. I want to have a beautiful girlfriend who looks like a supermodel, so I'll do what he does. I'll approach women with aggression and with violence. There's that study that says the greatest thing men have to fear from women is being laughed at. The greatest thing women have to fear from men is being killed. This is about redressing that balance, where fathers have an opportunity that, if Andrew Tate just by talking can influence your son, you just by talking can influence your son. Counteract the negative information with positive, so that a boy at a point of conflict instinctively goes to you and not to the internet.
I agree with all of that, and I think, and it touched me from what you're saying, that perspective of losing your child to the horrors that exist in the internet. I share all of that sentiment, and many of you at home will. But I do think this issue of the casting, because I know this, many of you get in touch. I've seen the inbox, and many people do feel that casting was a deliberate kind of decision, if you would like, to try and not to demonise the young white working class boys, but people perhaps would have gone, oh, we better not use a young black lad to play this character because we might be perceived as being racist, so let's dump it on the young white kid and that'll be more than fine.
That's why I think I'm glad you made that point, and why I say that I actually talked to the men who made it, and they explained their intention, because Stephen Graham is writing about his life, so he can't have a black son, he's got to have his son on camera. So he's putting himself front and centre, saying that when you have situations like this, it's not the parents' fault. They're fighting this demon that is bigger than anything they've done before in an era that is inexplicable. So when people feel like they're demonising the white working-class child, no, they're not. He's speaking to the truth of a human condition that's going awry, that everyone collectively needs to address in order to fix it.
What do you think, Jake Berry?
Well, by the way, I think that's really interesting to hear some of the background of it. But I think some of the challenges is these aren't usual families because there's a father there. And we've got to accept that most families of these white working class boys, there isn't a father there. But also we've got to do something about this. The most common killer of men under the age of 40 is suicide.
It is.
Something is going tragically wrong with how we bring up our young boys, how we educate them, at underperforming girls in school. And, as brilliant as this drama may be, I don't think it's enough. I think we've got to have real action to try and support our young lads.
Yeah, and I can hear lots of you at home saying, Michelle, chance to afford Netflix would be an absolute fine thing. Yes, I hear that point as well. Look, tell me your thoughts on all of that, but I would beg any parent out there, any grandparent or whatever, please don't just leave your teenagers or whatever it is in their bedrooms with access to the World Wide Web, because on said World Wide Web, there are things that you would be devastated if you knew that your child was accessing. But look, after the break, I want to ask you whether or not this banner that was held up at a football match was racist and or discriminatory. I'll also give you that update as well on Tommy Robinson's case that I mentioned to you last night. I'll see you in 2.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It has been a remarkably dry March so far across the UK, but it's all changed this weekend. Cloudier skies, spells of rain or showers moving through, and as a result, feeling significantly cooler. We've already seen the isobars tighten up across the UK ahead of this area of low pressure. That's increased the breeze as we've gone through the last couple of days. A mild breeze, but increasingly an unsettled one, with spells of rain moving north across the country. The most persistent wet weather overnight, northern England into Scotland and Northern Ireland, although even here there'll be some drier interludes. Further south, eventually turning drier, some clear spells, but with a lot of cloud and that breeze, it is going to be a mild start to Saturday. Certainly a frost-free start, a marked contrast compared with the sunny but chilly mornings of the week so far. Now, we do start with plenty of dry weather across England and Wales, although showers couldn't be ruled out just about anywhere. I think West Wales, North West England seeing some sunshine early on. Otherwise, a lot of cloud blankets the UK. And we've got 2 areas of rain moving north, one affecting western Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland, another one affecting eastern parts of Scotland, in between some showers. And really, it's a slow-moving situation as we go through the day. I think that for Scotland and Northern Ireland, we'll see further spells of rain or showers, the wettest weather likely for western Scotland, the far north and Northern Ireland. Elsewhere, skies do brighten into the afternoon. There'll be some sunshine. Some places will get away with a dry afternoon, but there'll also be these slow-moving heavy downpours, particularly across central parts of the UK. Where we do get sunshine, 17, 18 Celsius possible, so still some warmth, but it is turning cooler gradually through the weekend. And after a gloomy start to Sunday with some mistiness around eastern coasts, it's going to be another day of sunny spells and some spells of rain or showers. The showers heaviest towards southern parts of England. And we keep the showers going into next week, but it's going to turn drier for many.
This spring, the Chancellor steps up to the dispatch box to make a statement. But what kind of statement will it be?
Taxes, spending, growth, benefits, cost of living. What's changing? And more importantly, how does it affect you?
Does she have the headroom to make headway?
Will it ease the squeeze or tighten the grip?
Will businesses boom or struggle to survive?
And does the spring statement have real impact, or is it just political posturing?
GB News brings you the analysis that matters. Just what it means for your money, your home, your future.
The Spring Statement 2025, Wednesday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to Dewbs & Co. It's Friday, so you know what that means, don't you? It's my favourite part of the week. Why? Because Dewberry Tavern is firmly open. So I say cheers to each and every single one of you at home, and I say cheers to Jake Berry, my panellist, and also to Judita De Silva. I've got to say Jake Berry has been complaining about the quality of the pint that he's been given, but you know what? Times are tough. We're living in challenging times, so you've got to get on with it and, you know, just...
But my only complaint, it wasn't a full pint. It's a very nice beer. I love my beer, but it wasn't a full pint.
I thought it looked a bit rubbish. Hold it up to the camera.
If I was in the Dog and Duck, I'd send it back for a top.
Would you really?
Yeah, of course I would, yeah.
I'll have a word with the staff behind the bar. What can I say? Look, Phil says, Michelle, young white males are failing in education, employment and mental health while being shoved to the bottom of every single list, told that they're privileged, toxically masculine and so on and so forth. What is it that you expect these little boys to become? Ken says, Michelle, I am white and I was born in the slums of Manchester, he says. We had a tin bath and a shared toilet. Why do people keep saying I'm privileged just because I have white skin? I can hear you. Lots of you getting in touch about that one at home. Look, yesterday we discussed, didn't we, the court case of Stephen Yaxley Lennon, also known as Tommy Robinson. He was bringing a case. He wanted an expedited hearing, essentially, to look at whether or not his treatment in prison was essentially unlawful. The suggestion that it was because of his political beliefs. Anyway, the judge has ruled on that now this morning and said, actually, that there is no case. He will have to remain in the situation that he currently finds himself. I can tell you now, lots of you will be divided on that. There is an appeal scheduled, so that story, I imagine, is not over. But look, I'll keep across that one, update you with any relevant updates. But look, I also want to talk about this before we say farewell. There is a situation when it comes to football. I mean, I am somebody that thinks that political statements and gestures and symbols and all the rest of it, they shouldn't be in football anyway. But something that really caught my eye, a banner was held up at a football match recently, and it said, and I quote, "Keep woke foreign ideologies out, defend Europe." Well, it's all kind of kicked off a little bit, really, because the club have been punished for this, Rangers. A Wayfarer has said that it's discriminatory and or racist. The club have basically been punished, and now they're kind of issuing harsh words, saying that they want to find these people, and quotes, "There will be consequences for this." Judita, I mean, I must confess, as I've just said, I don't think any kind of statements like this should be at football anyway, because you're just there to kick a ball about, escape from life and have a bit of fun. But notwithstanding any of that, do you see that banner as being racist and or discriminatory?
First of all, like, when I even just reviewed it, I just had a whole bunch of questions because the syntax in and of itself makes no sense. So I think it was attempting to be inflammatory, and it could be interpreted as racist if it was actually structured like a cohesive sentence, because when it says keep woke foreign ideologies, they refer to LGBTQ ideologies as woke, pro-women ideologies as woke. So, and they're from Europe as well. So do you want to keep Europe out of Europe because they're woke people in Europe? And then when you say foreign ideologies, which are the foreign ideologies that you're trying to keep out of Europe? You're not being specific enough because you're obviously treading around being blunt about what you actually truly feel, and you're not executing it with accuracy because you're contradicting yourself. So this is just a waste of time, attention and energy.
But the thing that gets me in all of this, it's about the fact that you've now got sanctions, the fact that we're working to identify those responsible and there will be consequences. What are you talking about?
I have no idea, and to quote the great Donald J. Trump, I literally have no idea what that sign means, and I don't think the people who held it up do either. The sign is complete and utter nonsense. There should just be, I honestly don't know what it means. It's not racist, it's just nonsensical, but there should be no room in football for these sort of political statements. I deplore that as much as I deplore the England football team taking the knee before football matches. People go to football games to be entertained. There's a reason that football grounds are full and churches are empty. People prefer being entertained than they do want to be preached to, especially no one wants to be preached to about politics. Let football be about football. Get rid of all of this nonsense and political statements and let people enjoy the game. And as for that sign, as I say, it's completely meaningless.
While I agree with that sentiment, that would work if we lived in utopia. But when you're putting football players on the pitch where you have an entire bank of people calling you a monkey and throwing bananas at you, there's an issue with racism. So taking the knee is defending the welfare of players on the pitch.
Taking the knee is supporting Black Lives Matters, which is a Marxist-based organisation that wants to do things like defund our police force, who are actually there keeping fans safe and enabling them to go to and from the ground in safety. That's why it's not about... it's not about... I want to see no racism in football, but that's why I don't think the England team and others should be endorsing a movement that wants to defund the police, the armed forces and the states here in the UK. I think the people who did it, well-intentioned as they were, just frankly had no idea what they were doing. They were just useful idiots as far as the movement was concerned.
While I agree that the management of the bureaucratic management of the movement was completely flawed, and I have my own personal issues with it, the ethos behind it I stand by 110%, because saying that the lives of black people matter is a conversation that needs to be had, because the treatment exclusively of black players in football is something that the other players do not experience, and that is why they recognise that defending my colleagues by saying the statement, their lives matter as much as mine. It's something I stand behind. So the wording speaks to a truth. The practice of the business was flawed.
You know, the kicking races. I mean, I'm a Liverpool fan. I remember when John Barnes was playing for Liverpool, and the minute he got the ball, a sea of inflatable bananas would be thrown. Absolutely disgusting and appalling. And I'm so glad that football isn't like that anymore. Racism in football is completely unacceptable. I just don't think there's a place for a political statement, whether it be that nonsensical sign or Black Lives Matter or any other political statement that people would make. I just don't think it's part of football.
But that point you just made, from what John Barnes went through to what Vicinius Jr. went through just last season to what they're going through right now, it's still there.
Yeah.
So it's an issue that isn't going away. So you can't afford to say that when a player who is black says that my life matters, my welfare matters as much as my teammates, and your teammates say, yeah, I stand by you with that. They co-opted a visual reference that spoke to a truth, but also was attached to a business model that had corrupt people behind it, which is unfortunate, which is what makes me angry, because they compromised something that was pure.
But racism is completely wrong. I don't think there's anyone watching this that would disagree with it. It's appalling. And if somebody's making monkey chants or whatever chants it is within football, absolutely disgraceful, racist, disgusting behaviour. But you don't need players to use the pitch as a political kind of, I don't know, stage, if you would like, to make these gestures, because all you need to do is get your CCTV on, look at who that person was, that spectator making those statements, get them on the Jumbotron, the big screen, shame them and ban them. You don't need to.
But if they did that comprehensively, by now we would be in a situation where we don't have to do this. Those players don't want to spend their time saying, don't do this to me. They want to play football. They love the game. But also, they have to deal with this, knowing that when I go out on the pitch, I'm going to have a constant assault and they won't just let me play.
But you did get to the stage, didn't you, where when the England team were doing it, everyone was booing.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day...
But look at who's booing.
We are
And why are you booing? Because when you say the actual battleground for the problem is the pitch of football.
That's why they're booing, and they're right.
Yeah, they're booing because they don't want to be lectured. They just want to escape society.
Some of those people booing are the aggressors.
Good, we'll name them and shame them. If they are the aggressors and they're doing that in public in a football stadium, that's actually quite helpful, because then you can get them on the Jumbotron, you can name them and shame, and you can ban them for life. That'll pack it in. Anyway, look, that's all we've got time for. Many of you will say you don't want football to have any political statements in, irrespective of the cause. Have a good weekend. I'll see you on Monday night.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It has been a remarkably dry March so far across the UK, but it's all changed this weekend. Cloudier skies, spells of rain or showers moving through, and as a result, feeling significantly cooler. We've already seen the isobars tighten up across the UK ahead of this area of low pressure. That's increased the breeze as we've gone through the last couple of days. A mild breeze, but increasingly an unsettled one, with spells of rain moving north across the country. The most persistent wet weather overnight, northern England into Scotland and Northern Ireland, although even here there'll be some drier interludes. Further south, eventually turning drier, some clear spells, but with a lot of cloud and that breeze, it is going to be a mild start to Saturday, certainly a frost-free start, a marked contrast compared with the sunny but chilly mornings of the week so far. Now, we do start with plenty of dry weather across England and Wales, although showers couldn't be ruled out just about anywhere. I think West Wales, North West England seeing some sunshine early on. Otherwise, a lot of cloud blankets the UK. And we've got two areas of rain moving north, one affecting western Scotland and western parts of Northern Ireland, another one affecting eastern parts of Scotland, in between some showers. And really, it's a slow-moving situation as we go through the day. I think that for Scotland and Northern Ireland, we'll see further spells of rain or showers, the wettest weather likely for western Scotland, the far north and Northern Ireland. Elsewhere, skies do brighten into the afternoon. There'll be some sunshine. Some places will get away with a dry afternoon, but there'll also be these slow-moving heavy downpours, particularly across central parts of the UK. Where we do get sunshine, 17, 18 Celsius possible, so still some warmth, but it is turning cooler gradually through the weekend. And after a gloomy start to Sunday with some mistiness around eastern coasts, it's going to be another day of sunny spells and some spells of rain or showers. The showers heaviest towards southern parts of England. And we keep the showers going into next week, but it's going to turn drier for many.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ranner. As we've been hearing throughout the course of the day, Heathrow Airport remains closed off, and that also means that Heathrow Express and Elizabeth Line services are suspended to the airport, obviously. What it means for the roads, or surrounding roads, particularly around Hayes, they're closed off, and the M4 Heathrow spur shut from the main carriageway of the M4 towards the tunnels and the terminals as well. Now, staying with the roads, there are long queues in Hampshire on the M27 eastbound. A car caught fire between junction 11 and 12 as you head towards Portsmouth. That's causing long queues back past the scene and back onto the M275 tonight. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
We're giving you the chance to splash out this season with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash. Jet off on your dream holiday, treat yourself to something special, or just save